Hello students, welcome to Accounting 2302, Managerial Accounting. This is Dr. Mercado speaking, and in today's lecture we are going to be covering exercise 1811, okay, which is going to be dealing with activity rates and product costs using the activity-based cost. Okay, now this problem will also be on your exam. It's a little bit lengthy like all of the other ones that I've been covering, but like I stated earlier, I like to select these problems because they provide you with a good overview of what the chapter is covering or entails. Okay, now this is the problem that we are going to be covering today. It deals with activity rates and product costs using activity-based costing. So we have a manufacturing company that manufactures dining room lighting fixtures and entryway fixtures. So we have two types of fixtures that are being produced: entryway and dining room lighting fixtures. Okay, so there's 5 activities associated with the manufacturing of those light fixtures. The activities and their associated budgeted activity costs and activity bases are as follows. And we have the activities, the budgeted activity costs, and the activity based. Corporate records were obtained to estimate the amounts of activity to be used by the two products. The estimated activity-based usage quantities and units produced are as follows. So they give you the activity base for both the entry and the dining room lighting fixture. So they give you a breakdown by each and then a total. Okay. Using all of that information provided, we are to determine the activity rate for each activity. And we're going to use the activity rates to determine the total and per unit activity costs associated with each of the products. We're going to round to the nearest cent. Okay, so we've got a lot of information. Like I usually inform you, it is very important that you read the chapter first. All of the information is provided. I've gotten some pieces from the chapter just so we can have a general understanding of what we are speaking about when we talk to activity-based costing method. Okay, but there's just a lot more wealth of information in the chapter, so I please encourage all of you to read the chapter before you begin working on any of your assignments. Okay, if you try to guess, you're not going to really understand what you're doing. Okay, so the activity-based costing method provides an alternative approach for allocating factory overhead that uses multiple factory overhead rates based on different activities. So what is an activity? Activities are the types of works or actions involved in a manufacturing or service process. For example, the assembly, inspection, engineering design functions are activities that might be used to allocate overhead. And those activities vary depending on the type of manufacturing product or the type of service that you provide. These are not standard. They are developed or to specific needs based on the manufacturing process for the goods or services that you are providing. Okay, so to be able, we're going to have to be calculating the activity rates. To calculate the activity rates, basically the budgeted activity costs are assigned to products using factory overhead rates for each of the activities. These rates are called activity rates because they are related to that specific activity. Activity rates are computed by getting the budgeted activity cost divided by the total activity minus the base usage. Okay, we're also going to be allocating costs. Overhead costs of each activity are allocated to a product by multiplying the product's activity base usage by the activity rate. Okay, so this is a lot of information. I feel that once we begin working on the problem, it just makes a lot more sense what we're doing. Okay, it might seem overwhelming. There's a lot of information, but it's very simple math that we're doing. Do not, be afraid, and you can always use your calculator. Okay, so let's begin to tackle the problem. The first part is to determine the activity rate for each activity. So we have to first identify the activity rate because we're going to be using the activity rate to be able to figure out the activity cost. Okay, if your activity rate is incorrect, then your activity costs will all be wrong. Okay, so it's very important that we get that top section correct. Okay, so let's begin with the activities. Remember, we have 5 activities that are happening in the manufacturing process for these lighting fixtures. Okay, the first activity we have is casting. Okay, so we look at casting. We have budgeted that we are going to be spending $640,000 on machine hours for the casting process. Okay, so this is an automated system. We use machine hours for it, and we're anticipating we're going to spend $640,000 on that. Okay. we're going to divide the budgeted activity cost by the total activity base. So we're going to be dividing, okay? So my activity base is machine hours, right? Well, how many machine hours are we anticipating on using for the casting process, okay, or for the casting activity? We will look at machine hours. We've got a total of 20,000 machine hours that we are anticipating using, okay? So we're spending $640,000 to be able to use 20,000 machine hours, okay? So that means that, let's get our calculator. We're going to divide the 640,000 divided by the 20,000 machine hours that we are anticipating using. So that's going to give me at my activity rate of $32 per machine hour. Okay, so for every machine hour that we use, it's going to cost me $32. Okay, we're going to do the same thing for assembly. Assembly activity, assembly. Okay, so for assembly, we are anticipating, we budgeted $125,000 that we're going to use. Okay, and we're going to divide that by the activity base. If we look down here, for the assembly, we are using direct labor hours. This activity is done by individuals, and we are expecting to have 5,000 direct labor hours. Okay, so we're going to get our calculator out. We're going to have 125,000 divided by 5,000. That's going to give me $25 per, okay, right here, $25 per direct labor hour. Okay, I'm going to abbreviate. DLH is direct labor hour. Okay. Next, we have inspecting. For inspecting, I am anticipating on spending $30,000. Okay, we are expected to have the number of inspections, 600 inspections. So we're going to have 600 inspections. So if we get 30,000, and we're going to divide it by 600 inspections, that's going to be $50 per inspection. Okay. The next one we have are setups. Okay, we have to set up specific equipment. We are anticipating spending $28,000 on setups. Okay, and we are anticipating having 350 setups. Okay. So if we look, we're going to have the $28,000 divided by the 350 setups. That's going to give me $80 per setup. Okay, $80 per setup. And then last but not least, we've got materials handling. Okay, materials handling. Okay. We spend $20,000 on that, okay? And we're going to divide that by the number of loads, and we are anticipating having 1,000 loads, okay? So that means we are going to get 20,000 divided by 1,000. That's going to give me $20 per load. Okay? So we've already calculated the activity rate for each of the activities, and we did that by getting the budgeted activity cost up here. Okay, this is where we're getting the information. So we are getting these numbers over here. Okay, so we are getting the no fill. There we are. So we are getting the budgeted activity cost provided, and we are dividing it by the total down here. Okay. This total down here is what we are anticipating using in total for both the entry and the dining room, so we can get our activity rate. So we divide the cost by the base, and that will give us our activity rates. Okay. Now that we've got our activity rates, now I know what to charge for each of those activities. Okay, so if I have to charge for casting, I'm going to charge $32 per machine hour. If I have to charge assembly, I'm going to charge $25 per direct labor hour. If I need to charge inspecting, I'm going to charge $50 for it per inspection, so on and so forth. Okay, that is requirement A. Okay, to determine the activity rates for each. We've done that. Okay, that is what we're looking for right here. Now, the second part is use the activity rates calculated in letter A, which we did, to determine the total and per unit activity costs associated with each product. So now we are putting cost for each of the products. And remember, we have two products. We have the entry lighting fixtures and the dining room lighting fixtures. Okay, so we're going to have to, using the activity rates, calculate the cost for the entry and for the dining room fixtures. Okay, so let's start off with casting. Okay. So for casting, my activity-based usage, we're going to go ahead and now we're going to look at only the entryway information here. So my activity-based usage is $7,500 for the entryway for casting. Okay, and casting is machine hours. So we're looking at machine hours down here, 7,500. Let me center this, okay? And my activity rate for casting is $32, okay? So now my activity cost is going to be my activity rate times my activity-based usage. Okay, that will give me $240,000. So I am getting, for this particular part of the problem, we are dealing with entryway. So now this one, we are going to be looking at these numbers down here at the entryway information. Okay, so that's for casting. Now we're going to be doing for assembly. Assembly is using direct labor hours. We are anticipating having 3,000. Let me change this. Okay. We are anticipating having 3,000 direct labor hours for the entryway lighting fixtures. The assembly is $25 per direct labor hour. So we're going to multiply those together, and that would give me 75,000. So you multiply the 3,000 times the 25, and where am I getting these numbers? Well, I'm getting them from up here, okay? So that is for assembly. Inspecting, okay? For inspecting, the number of inspections, we are anticipating having 200 for the entryway. So we have 200 inspections. We're going to multiply it by the inspecting rate of $50 per inspection, okay? And then that will give me $10,000. Okay, so you multiply the activity base times the activity rate. Okay, now I have setups. Okay, so I have for the entryway, I have 150 setups. My setup cost is $80 per setup. So if I multiply those two together, that gives me 12,000. And then last but not least, we've got materials handling. For materials handling, we have a number of loads. We're going to have 400 loads for the entryway at $20 per load. So we're going to go ahead and multiply the times 20. And that's going to give me 8,000. Okay. So that is how we assign costs based on the activity rates that we previously calculated. Okay. Okay, so now we are going to go ahead and get the total activity cost. Okay, total activity cost. Okay, so to get the total activity cost, we're basically just going to add all of the activity costs. We're going to add that down. And because I am using Excel, it is just much easier for me to get the total instead of getting a calculator. So here we have $345,000 that we're spending on the entry lighting fixtures. Okay, that is the total cost to manufacture those 5,000 units of entryway lighting fixtures. Now I want to calculate the activity cost per unit. How much is it costing me per each lighting fixture? Okay, so I'm going to divide it. I'm going to divide by the number of units. Okay, and the number of units that we have, if we look down here, we produce 5,000 units. Okay, so we're going to get the $345,000 divided by the number of units, which is 5,000, and that is going to give me my activity cost per unit. Okay, so we're going to get 345,000 divided by 5,000 units. That's going to give me a cost of $69 per unit. Okay. And you can just do the 345 divided by the 5,000 and it gives you $69. Okay. So it cost me $69 to manufacture each of the entry lighting fixtures. Okay. So we are going to repeat the same thing, but now for the dining room fixtures. Okay. Now we are going to be using the data where it says dining down here. Okay, we're going to be using that data. So now we're looking at the dining area fixture information. Okay, so the activity base, okay, we're going to have casting once again. And I don't have to enter it because I already have it here, casting. My activity base usage is 12,500. My activity rate for casting is $32. Okay, and I'm getting it from up here. Remember, we get the rates from up here. Okay, so we're going to multiply the 12,500 times the 32. That gives me 400,000. Okay, for the assembly, we're going to be looking at the next item. We have 2,000 assemblies. Okay, the assemblies is $25 per assembly. So then that's going to give me $50,000. Okay. The next one we have is inspecting. We've got 400 inspections. So I'm looking at the data here where it says dining, 400. Okay. For the inspection is $50 per inspection. So then that's going to give me $20,000. Okay. For the setup, we have 600 setups. Okay. At $80 per setup, that's going to give me $48,000. Let me see. Do I have? I'm sorry. We have 400. It's 200 setups. 200. So we have 200 setups. So it's 12,500, 2,400, and 200. Yes. And then we have 600 materials handling. Okay. 600. And then my rate is $20 per load. And that's going to give me 12,000. Okay. So this is what each of the activity cost me to produce those dining room lighting fixtures. Okay, by activity, this is my activity cost. Now I'm going to get my total activity cost. Okay, my total activity cost, I'm going to add up all of my activity cost to get a total. Okay, that gives me $498,000. Okay, I'm going to divide by the number of units. Okay, how many units did we produce? If we look down here, we produced 4,000 dining room fixtures. Okay, 4,000 dining room fixtures. So now I'm going to calculate my activity cost per unit. And my activity cost per unit is going to be the 498,000 divided by the 4,000 units that we produced. That's going to give me a activity cost per unit of $124.50. So we can see here, we can observe that producing the dining room lighting fixtures is a lot more expensive than producing the entry lighting fixtures. So now we can be able to identify the costs associated with each of the activities and how those transfer down to being able to produce or calculate the activity cost per unit. Okay. And these can vary by month because, you know, the casting or the assembly, the inspections, that can vary. So maybe you are going to be doing these calculations, you know, quite frequently during the year to update your records because you don't want to use obsolete information. Things can change, okay? But this is how you calculate your activity rate. First of all, that's the first thing that we have to calculate, the activity rate. And then using the activity rates, we are able to calculate the activity cost for each of the units that we produce. Okay, so these are pretty straightforward. It's just a matter of locating the information that we need and then doing the math. And you can always use a calculator for when you are doing your calculations. Make sure that you round to the nearest cent. Okay, that is basically it for this problem. Okay, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. I hope these videos are of help to you. There's tutoring available at the CLE lab if you need additional tutoring. But I feel that if you read the chapter, complete your assignments, which are the study plan and your homework, that would get you prepared to mastering the content that we are required to master by the end of the semester and be able to succeed in the course. Okay, so that is basically it for this lecture. Until next time, have a wonderful day. Bye bye.